3, 2, 1. Hey.
Hey, everybody. We are WeMovies.
Shout out to Chris.
Shout out to Chris.
Shout
I'm
out to Chris.
Scotty.
I'm Caleb.
I'm Jordan.
And we are talking about Annihilation.
Annihilation.
Not nominated for the Oscars.
You were awesome. All right.
Right, cut. I've got
Good day, sir. We say good day. On WeMovies, we do our research.
We are professionals. We actually have a monkey in the back somewhere on a computer that's just feeding us lines. Annihilation is directed by Alex Garland, who also did that robot movie. What is it called?
Ex Machina.
Ex Mach. Thank you.
Really good movie.
Really great film.
I think it was okay.
I thought it was great.
Really
given that he was a
moments.
first-time director, I think he did pretty frigging
For
good.
a first-time director, it's amazing.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying it's an amazing film just because he was a first-time director.
I think there are two scenes that don't work, but everything else in it's great. Anyway, let's
Maybe we'll do another review of that.
Maybe we should. Okay, and this Annihilation is based upon the novel of the same name by Jeff Vandermeer. It stars Natalie Portman, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Gina Rodriguez, Tessa Thompson, Tuva Novotny, and Oscar Isaac. And it is a film about a woman who sees her husband for the first time in a year, I believe it is, and she goes on a journey to discover his mysterious illness, which he has just suddenly come down with, and she joins a troop of other women to discover what is really
You just
going
stole
on.
Caleb's job, you know that.
I did?
Yeah,
Did
he's the synopsis guy.
Oh,
I'm the synopsis guy.
Yeah.
As we know, I'm very good at condensing things.
I was just trying to push through.
Yeah, well done, Jordan. Well done.
So we wasted
wasn't
so
bad.
much time in that first 5 minutes.
That's true.
Annihilation stars Natalie Portman.
That's it. Okay.
Natalie Portman and
We'll get
Natalie
this
Portman.
on the fourth intro. Don't
We will.
worry.
Yeah, we're cutting all of this.
It stars Natalie Portman.
It does.
Are
Do you want the list?
we getting into spoilers right off the bat?
Okay.
Might as well. It's been out for over a year now.
Let's do initial impression.
Okay,
Initial
fine.
impression?
Yeah.
As in, like, what my thoughts after our very first time I saw
You
it?
can tell your thoughts now. I don't care. Yeah,
He doesn't give a shit about
now
your
that you've
thoughts.
told me you don't care, that changes the. All right. Yeah, I thought it was a good movie. I thought it was good. Lots of really interesting things that I really appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciated that the movie took its time.
Yep.
Sometimes I felt it dragged, but overall, I think the movie was worth it. There's heaps of interesting, cool stuff that happens from a sci-fi perspective.
Yes, that's a good point.
Lots of different. There's a few different themes, which are nice, which aren't hard to pick up on.
Mm-hmm.
Acting is. It varies from great to goodish.
We'll talk more about that later. Jordan, your initial impressions.
My initial impressions. I think out of the three of us, I have seen it the most recent for the first time. I saw it for the very first time about 3-4 weeks ago, I think.
That is very recently.
And my initial impressions before I watched it, I was kind of dreading it because I'd heard what kind of a film it is, and I'm not a huge horror fan. Like I do like classic horror films, but as marketable horror, I'm not a big fan of.
Yep. And it did in the marketing, in the trailers, it did seem like a sort of jump scary horror actiony movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell you.
But my initial thoughts, it made me uncomfortable, but the right kind of uncomfortable, if that makes sense. I found a lot of themes that I identified with, such as depression, anxiety, guilt, and all of these things that manifest in a real physical form for these characters. I really appreciated that, and also the time given for these characters to go through those things almost individually as well. I thought was a really good decision for this film, and overall I thought it was a really great film.
Okay, well, I love Deus Ex Machina.
Deus Ex Machina.
Is it just Ex Machina?
Ex Machina.
Yeah.
Deus Ex Machina is the video game.
Oh, Deus Ex Machina is a thing that happens in stories.
Stop hitting your mic!
It's
That's
really
Deus Ex
it's all up
Machina.
in my space. I'm not all about
I
this.
told you could push it in and it's fine.
What are we talking about again?
Obviously, Mike.
Yeah.
Right.
Caleb has a problem with Mike. We will discuss this later.
Thoughts on Annihilation?
My thoughts
You
on
liked
Annihilation.
Deus Ex Machina, Human Revolution.
Yeah, I did. I love the game. I also
The
loved
first,
the
second,
movie
and third one.
I loved Andy Garland. So when it came out,
Alex Garland.
yeah,
I
whatever.
love this podcast.
That's great. We're off the wall today.
Good old Andy Garland and his fantastic sci-fi movies.
Whatever.
Continue,
Please
Scotty.
continue.
I'm trying to. You can.
We'll get through the initial reactions by the end of this podcast.
Oh,
Yeah.
goodness. So I was really looking forward to it. I watched
Yeah.
it 3 days after it came to Netflix, and I loved it.
Well done.
It
Well
was
done.
better than I expected it to be. I was expecting something like Ex Machina. I actually think this is very different to Ex Machina.
It is.
In that it's much more horror. It's much more discussion provoking, in my opinion, than Ex
Yeah.
Machina was. Ex Machina is a much more contained story. This leaves a lot more to the viewer, which I also appreciate. Yeah, that was my.
So that's a
first-
dead
Right.
gen reviews. Are we?
Yeah.
Do I have to do deep dive?
No,
Thank God.
Caleb, dude. No, I'm just
Would I take Jordan's job like he took my
Yeah,
job?
yeah,
You could.
All right.
You could do it. Go on.
Go on.
Absolutely.
Go on.
I don't want to do it. I hated it all the other times. I did it.
And he wasn't even doing it.
Controversy in WeMovies.
All right.
All right. So let's
Deep dive!
louder. No, don't do it louder. Please,
Good
God,
job.
don't do it.
Thank you. Let's deep dive this.
Let's
bitch.
deep dive this. Wow.
This
Where do we
Weird
start?
spacey things happen.
Where do we start?
the movie.
Natalie
It's about
Portman.
it.
I think we start with Natalie Portman because I really
Yeah.
do feel this movie hinges on her performance and how she deals with the issues that portrayed.
Yeah. I feel like out of all the characters in this film, she actually deals with all of their problems in
Yes.
herself.
She's
She
very
deals with
reflective of
grief.
them.
She deals with guilt. She deals with loss. She deals with depression. She deals with anxiety. Whereas all the other female characters that follow her into this mess, they're all individually almost manifestations of those issues themselves. And each of them are different and individual in their own way.
We're already getting to things that you bring to the movie as opposed to what are in the movie. which is
Yeah.
great.
Hey,
Yeah.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I also think she's very important because to see a character like her who's a scientist
Yeah.
going into an
A
exploratory thing.
woman scientist?
I know. What crazy world is
Has
this?
hell frozen over?
I know.
I
They're
did see a flying
intelligent.
pig today, but I did not think anything of it. No, actually, you know what? This movie, remember Ghostbusters being plastered everywhere?
yeah.
It was an all-female remake. This movie contains like 2 males,
Yep.
if that.
And they're
Cloth
also
gave 3.
they're also
Plot characters.
They're also
But
no,
still.
well, not plot. They do have genuinely their own
Predominantly female.
character moments, but they're weak and they need the female characters to be stronger than them for them to actually be carried through the story.
Yeah.
Okay, can we
Um,
just jump
all
straight to
leads are women.
spoilers?
No, well,
yeah.
we said at the
While we're on
beginning,
the
it's been
topic
out
of
for a
Natalie-
year
Oscar
yet.
Isaac isn't Oscar
How
Isaac.
dare you? I will speak my voice about Natalie Portman,
Okay.
good sir.
Okay.
How about you?
I was waiting for. I was wondering when you jump in.
Yeah, I will jump in.
Okay.
I already jumped in through the deep dive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's already there.
I liked Natalie Portman in Black Swan.
Good for you.
You don't like her in anything else?
Seriously, have you seen Leon the Professional?
I haven't, no.
What?
She was a child in that, though, wasn't she?
She was friggin' amazing.
Okay, cool. I'll take your word for it.
Jeez.
I might see it at some point.
I know
Um,
she made Keira Knightley cry in episode 1.
Did she really?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
The reason she got less screen time in episode 2 and 3 is actually because of that.
Really?
Oh, that's what I've heard.
Wow.
Okay. All right. Don't know anything about that.
Was
Anyway,
it because she was a
um,
bitch or really?
I think so, yeah.
Ooh.
you got to dig on the details after this podcast. Yeah, no, I think
Wow.
she had some really great moments in this movie.
Mhm.
And I think she also had some other moments where it was, I'm not going to say bad acting, I'm going to say it was really subdued. And I think this was the director telling the whole cast,
Yes.
I want a more realistic, grounded, well,
Give
I
it.
feel like it's his
give
version
me-
of realistic,
I
which
know-
is
Yeah.
really subdued.
Give
Like,
me a.
keep
Well,
it
we saw
together,
that Next
not
Machina as
emotional.
well. Like there was a lot of that subdued performances by
Donald Gleason.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. That's, which
and
is why I think
Vikander
it's
as
the director.
well.
I think it's the director. He was purposefully asking for a subdued, almost melancholy sort of
Oh, this film.
reaction to
I think
things.
This
what-
film is melancholy.
No, yeah,
like,
I was
absolutely.
saying earlier, like how you bring your own things to this movie. I feel like Natalie Portman was meant to do that. She was meant to have this inquisitive mind dealing with issues, but at the same time, she was this blank slate in terms of you can see through her eyes.
Well, I would also like to point out in the novel that this is based upon, and the two books that preceded, the names of the characters are not mentioned at all.
They're just their titles.
It's just not relevant.
They're not exactly.
Yeah.
But the feelings that they go through and what they go through in this haze or mist or whatever you want to call it. What do they call it in the film? They call it the shimmer. Yeah, the shimmer. That is that is the manifestation of what they've been through in their past lives, coupled with what they're going through in the shimmer. That's the important part.
Yep.
And I definitely felt like that came through in the film. Alex Garland actually said that what he did was he read the first book before the other two books came out. And so this film, and a lot of fans of the books didn't like this, but this film is him remembering how he felt when he read the book and then putting that to screen instead of word for word, beat for beat, trying to copy every single thing from the novel into a film.
It's interesting because I feel like that's something that often happens with book to screen things, especially like for me and a lot of people for the first two Harry Potter movies. They had in their mind stuff about what it should be.
Yeah.
They didn't see it in the movies.
Yeah.
I had a lot.
Well, it's the difference of like, I mean, it's a bad example. Well, actually, it's a perfect example. But the Dragon Ball Z movie that they made the live action one.
Okay.
But no, what I'm saying is that film was the whole thing of, oh, it's got to have this because that character's like this, and it's got to have that, and it's got to have that, it's got to have that. Otherwise, it's not a Dragon Ball Z movie. Instead of trying to capture how it felt as a kid to watch the show, they decided, let's just take all the pinpoints from Wikipedia and make that into a movie.
To hear people's opinions of that movie, Google on YouTube.
It's a bad movie, but we're not here to talk about that movie. Let's get back to Annihilation.
Anyway, yeah, I feel like he had creative control. I heard that there was some behind the scenes stuff that happened.
Yeah.
They basically looked at this movie and said, "This is so boring. Mainstream audiences are going to hate it."
I've actually got it right here.
So it's a bit more complicated than that.
Yeah. I'm gonna read it.
that.
I'm gonna read it out.
From Wikipedia.
From Wikipedia.
Or just give us the plot points.
All right, fine. Because of poorly received pre-screenings by selected audiences in Hollywood, a certain backer and financier disagreed with the ending and wanted it to be changed. And then, who was it? There's...
It's a great ending, by the way. I like the ending. Did you like the ending?
Scott Rudin is the main producer.
It was good.
Scott Rudin is one of the main producers, and he championed for Alex Garland's version of the film. So he was all like, no, this is a masterpiece. You cannot destroy the ending just because you didn't feel good about it. And so he made sure that stayed through pretty much all of production. And then I think it was a couple of weeks or a couple of months before release, they decided to give over the rights to Netflix, decided to pull a lot of the marketing for it, and it didn't go well.
No. It's actually on the list of biggest box office
flops of 2018.
Which is because the studio decided to give it an extremely limited release, having no faith in it whatsoever.
Yeah.
And also in every other country, rather than do any sort of theatrical release, they just sold it to Netflix.
Yeah.
And Netflix acquired it and released it.
Yeah. And I saw it 3 days after release, so it's great for me.
I love that. Yeah, exactly.
But Garland actually said, look, he was disappointed with the decision to put it to Netflix because he made this for cinema. He made this for the experience.
We probably should talk about the cinematography because the cinematography of this movie is incredible.
Yeah.
It has some amazing moments.
Rob Hardy is the cinematographer for this, and I don't think he has a Wikipedia page, but he does a fantastic job with this. It's very minimalist, just like the performances.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that leave the audience to determine the interpretation of some of these shots. Especially
in the final sequence where she's moving towards the hub, the thing.
Yeah.
I am in two minds about this because I think the shot composition is beautiful in this movie.
Yeah.
I think it's very well framed. I don't know so much about the cinematography. I feel like it was kind of safe. It wasn't the cinematographer. I didn't feel like the cinematographer had a personality or was showing any sort of uniqueness.
I don't know if that's a bad thing.
I would.
I don't know if it's a bad thing either because everything looked fine. But it looked very safe
I would
angles.
actually prefer to see a
That may have been a
cinematographer.
choice because of how weird everything in the movie is.
Yeah.
Because, like, for me, let's take The Revenant, for instance, where that cinematography has loads of the cinematographer's personality in it. I don't think that did a service to the film at all in terms of actually sticking to whatever narrative they were trying to say, because it was full of his personality instead of the story that they were trying to tell.
I think that's one of the most interesting things about that film.
And that's the problem.
As in, I don't think the film would have been that as interesting.
And that's
without
the problem.
amazing
I think the
cinematography.
And that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
yeah,
Like it
right.
defeats the purpose of the narrative of the film to have the cinematography be the most interesting part of it, because that's not why we watch. Like, if you want that,
I thought it was
well, you
about-
can, but at the
apparently
same
not
time,
DiCaprio.
like documentaries have amazing cinematography. Like we can go and watch documentaries for amazing cinematography if you don't want
to.
to.
The movie calls for whatever the director and the script and the movie calls for, whatever kind of cinematography is going to enhance it.
Yeah.
Or if it's going to be show offy.
Exactly, and that's
or
what
if
I
it's just gonna
felt.
be boring.
That's what I felt when I saw The Revenant, as opposed to this, where I felt like because of the subdued
fair
nature of the characters, it matched with the cinematography, and
Felt
also
like it was all completely competent and looked awesome at times. I just don't know that it stood out.
and I didn't want it to be
I think
honest. I
that's-
feel like that was a
think it's-
danger.
I think it was a clear plot point that the director told the cinematographer, because I feel like there's this thing of blank slate. You talk about subdued acting, and I think it's deliberate.
Yeah.
These are choices that the director has made for a specific purpose, and I think it's just to make us think about the themes that are in discussion here, not about technical skill or character moments in that regard.
And I also feel like, for me personally, as someone who does deal with anxiety and depression and all that stuff, I felt myself being able to put on the shoes of some of these characters and feel what they were feeling when I was watching it, simply because their performances weren't outlandish or weren't over the top or weren't even escalated to a point where it was just crazy. It was subdued, but it felt real.
It feels more realistic.
Yeah.
Also,
Absolutely. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah.
And I can easily see how people can watch it and think it's boring.
Oh, yeah.
These people aren't doing anything. Why are they not reacting to this and that? When they are, it's just a more realistic, subdued, pull it together because we're on a mission.
The other thing
kind
it
of
does
reaction.
with being subdued, which I think we should point out, is it has this dreamlike state to the movie. Once they
Absolutely.
once they go into the shimmer, they don't know what time is. They lose track of that.
They actually state earlier on.
This is a point that I am on the fence about, because one point during the movie, they walk into the shimmer, things get hazy, they wake up, 4 days later?
Yeah.
That's it.
They say they wake up 4 days later.
Yeah.
It's not actually confirmed, because previously, before they even go into the shimmer, they're actually having a conversation about how one person came out and they were raving about how long they were in there, but they weren't actually in there that long. And so there's this massive confusion of time, where time in that shimmer is its own thing. It's not dependent on what's going on outside of it.
But they seem to keep fairly good track of things after they wake up.
Do they?
They kind of just
I feel
fall
like
asleep.
I think there's a deliberate editing choice after they find the video. Since then, up until Tessa Thompson turns into a tree, there's this
Spoiler alert, Tessa Thompson
up until then, I
sprouts
feel like
flowers.
there's this weird editing choice where every scene seems to flow into itself and yet is disconnected.
Yeah, I would actually agree with that, because especially when we do hit that point where they find the tape recorder and all that other stuff, suddenly we've got some of the audio playing over the background as they go down into that pool, as they see the corpse of the soldier that's just exploded outward on the wall, and everything is almost just seamlessly. Like, we talk about how editors can show the passage of time through faded shots or changing a camera angle, or like doing something different, or seeing the sun pass. But when you're in a contextual situation that these characters are in, where, you know, time has been said earlier to be meaningless inside the shimmer, suddenly you lose the ability to be able to do that and show that passage of time. So instead, it felt like the editor utilized what they could and actually made it extremely confusing for the audience to tell how long they had actually been there.
Another example of this is the way a certain scene happens almost out of nowhere, like a nightmare. The scene I'm talking about is the scene where they're tied up in the house.
Yep.
The plot points that happen in that shot feels like a progression in a dream, where it goes from one thing happening after another out of nowhere, and it just this dread and horror.
I'm gonna go all like existential douchebag on you guys, and there's this thing called
Jordan's pretentious side.
Yeah, that's it.
Is rearing.
Welcome back to Jordan's pretentious side. Here it is.
There's this thing called Plato's Cave, which I saw played out in that very scene. And Plato's Cave is the whole thing of people who are standing facing the wall and seeing these shadows play on the side of the cave, but not seeing where the shadows are coming from or why they're coming from it. And they're happy with that. They're okay with that. And so the similar thing happens. We see Gina Rodriguez's character has tied them all up, and all they can see is the wall, and there's a light shining on it, and all they see is shadows. And then in the background, that's when the bear, this freakish zombie bear, comes through, and they can't turn around. They can't see it.
I don't even know what it is.
It is a bear. Well, they say it's a bear in the.
It's a boy that. It's a
what
bear
is
that
anything in the Shimmer?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
well,
really.
there's
two things
it's got
combined
a
together.
it's got a very
is it even two things. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of just an amalgamation of lots of different things, isn't it?
It's got a lot of elements of Carpenter's classic
Yeah.
horror in it.
Yeah,
The
and
thing.
one of the creepiest ideas that the thing has somehow absorbed one of its victims, and it's making noises of the victim as it was dying.
At the same time, everyone's cells are morphing,
degenerating.
and
Well, they
changing to
actually
something else.
describe it as like looking through a prism. It's a genetic prism that is morphing everything and bending it to something different.
So, spoiler, not even just for the movie, but for the books themselves.
Yeah.
I was reading up a lot on the books when the movie came out. After I saw the movie,
That's
I
good.
decided to read up
I'm
a lot.
glad because
on
I
the
haven't
books.
read anything.
Neither have I.
So the Shimmer is described almost like a petri dish that aliens or something is using to observe Earth the same way that we. And that's why there's a lot of
That's cool.
You see the cells. She's a microbiologist.
Yeah.
She's observing things in a petri dish. And in the same way that humans will observe organisms in a petri dish, we might poke around, change things, figure out why, how, what is it, you know?
Well, that makes sense with the final scene as well. It's like obviously what they're trying to, in that case, what they're trying to look for is human relationships. That's what they're trying to look at.
Well, that becomes the very that's deep.
So this is another thing
that's
with the movie
deep.
is that I feel like a lot of it is purposeful. You were saying this before. Purposefully a blank slate. Very purposefully.
Like a petri dish.
Exactly. Well, you know, because you can take so many different meanings from the ending, whatever you want. I feel like it was purposefully made that there wasn't a clear, definitive A leads to B leads to C.
I don't know
as to
if that's
why the
true.
ending was the way that it was. I think there's a lot of different things you can take from it. There wasn't a definitive anything.
See, what I took from the ending was that it was literally just, okay, this is where the story ends now. And the point of it is what they had to deal with to get to a point where they were sort of kind of safe. And to also say that these characters, regardless of whether they were in a safe place or whether they had returned home or whatever, that they still were changed. And there's nothing that they can go back and change
Well,
about
that's
that.
funny because what I got from the ending was she can never be forgiven for what she's done in the past.
Yeah.
So she has to forgive herself and live with her current circumstances.
Yeah, and in a way,
And, spoiler alert, she cheated on her husband when he had...
oh yeah,
And now she's got a new husband.
But the end kind of uses a perfect metaphor for just a basic thing of life is that when you go through an experience, you change.
Yeah.
A part of you dies, and new part of you is born, and you just are a different person. And then you have to try and figure out what your place is in the world and how to move on and how to live as this new person, having changed from an experience. that
Which
you
is
went
why
through.
I
Which
love...
is kind of it's a very general
Yeah.
thing, and you can make that as specific as you want.
I find Tessa Thompson's character's journey in this movie is very important to trying to understand the other characters. Simply because, unlike the other characters, she doesn't have she does have a tragic ending, but she has arguably the nicest
The
death.
peaceful ending. She's at peace with
She's the one
herself.
who becomes a tree.
I also would like
right.
to point out that she is actually she's a self-harmer. She cuts, and we see
Well, I thought that was Rodriguez.
no.
It's
Tessa
Was
Thompson.
it? Okay,
yeah.
all right.
And we see it before when we first see her arms uncovered, like scenes and scenes before this
I think
happens.
she's a social outcast.
Yeah.
She's a very isolated person, and the idea of her becoming one with the environment.
It was For me personally, it felt like it was a metaphor for someone who was about to commit suicide, but it was not emotionally motivated. She was at peace with it, and she was like, "Look, this is the only option I can personally see." Which is,
it felt like she found
that is a real thing that a lot of people who attempt suicide
especially
tend
with
to go
suicide
through.
pacts and stuff like that
Yeah.
as well.
Wow.
I mean, we just got deep.
Yeah, I mean, this film gets deep, and if you're not prepared for it, if you think you're up for like a sci-fi romp, you're watching the wrong film.
No, this is
That's
a
just interesting
movie.
It's just interesting because I didn't get that
Really?
from my viewing. No, I didn't get that.
What did you get from that character? I'm curious.
From her character?
Yeah, from her character.
To be honest, this is probably my own fault, but I wasn't so much focused on that character.
Okay.
That's
you
not.
know?
I mean, there's a lot to.
There is a lot to focus on with all these characters.
Well, yeah, I think, you know what? Interestingly enough, while I was watching the movie, I think I was digesting and processing.
Yeah.
I think as it was happening, I was still thinking about something that happened earlier in the movie.
This film does do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a lot of scenes
which is why
where
I
you
really,
can't get it out of your
look
head.
forward to my next watch
Mm.
as to what I'm going to pick up. Because I'm going to admit, I didn't rewatch this movie.
I didn't watch
I saw
it
it once. I saw it once when I very first saw it.
Yeah.
Okay, and it is the movie that's sprung into my head every now and then, and I just start thinking about it.
Yeah.
It kind of gets its hooks in.
I had the same thing when they discover in a military compound a tape recorder. Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, that's still sticks with me.
that
I can
scene
see
sticks
it
in
in
your
my
head. For the
brain.
next 2 or 3
Yeah.
scenes,
Yeah,
you're thinking about it,
exactly,
and
exactly.
you can tell the characters are thinking about it as well,
Yeah.
yeah.
which is very clever.
Well, it's
You know
their
what?
reactions to it as well.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
I've changed my initial reactions of this movie. It's a good movie. Go and see
Yeah,
it.
it is really
That's
good.
the thing. Like,
I
I
think
can't get any of these shots out of my head. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
everything
The more
just
that we talk
sticks
about
with you.
Now, the more it's jogging my memory, and I think my reaction was the way it was my first time seeing it was because you were just thinking about it and processing it. You don't know exactly what you saw the first time you saw it.
And like, I had to tell myself, because at the very end, because of all these issues that I struggle with, I had to tell myself repeatedly, just, you know, it's someone's interpretation of a story like this. And then the more I said that, the more I started to remember things that I really liked about it and the things that I really identified with it. So I feel like it is a film that you do have to take.
It's kind of like the opposite of Roma. Roma is such a personal story where one thing is clearly happening, yet it leads to interpretation because of it.
Yeah.
This is almost the opposite, where it's got the petri dish. The blank
There's
slate.
interpretation
Right.
taken, and then it leads to a personal reaction from the audience.
So I'm going to say the book, which I haven't read.
I haven't read either.
I read a lot about the book.
Okay.
And the impressions that I got from it is even the book is written in a way that it's in an impression of something that happened that even the author, not the author, but the narrator in the book doesn't really understand or know what was happening. And then you have a filmmaker who made a movie about an interpretation of a story that was being interpreted.
I mean, that's
and now you're hearing our interterpretations of an interpreted
I mean, this idea has
story.
been around for a long time. Like even in Bram Stoker's Dracula,
Yeah.
a lot of the early parts of the novel, it's about people's opinions of things that are happening. You can't actually get a clear image of what's
A lot of
going on.
and that's where a lot of the horror is built up
Yes.
in that book, is because you're not sure what is real and what is a story or an opinion of somebody that somebody created to make it sound more horrifying.
Now, normally I hate this because it screams of laziness.
Yes.
And I just get huge J.J. Abrams mystery box vibes.
J.J. Abrams?
very
Yes.
very
Okay.
different.
Yep. His Lost mystery box.
Okay.
His
Okay.
bloody Star Wars mystery box.
He hesitated for a moment.
J.J.
there.
Abrams looks in the Star Wars box and discovers
No,
Ryan
but
Johnson's head.
This is a talk that he gave. I found it on YouTube. I don't know how long it is, but it's just him giving a speech about how he was given a magician's box or a mystery box or something by someone
It's
when he
not
was a
just
kid,
him, but yeah.
and he never opened it forever because as long as he never opened it, anything that he imagined could be in there.
Yeah.
And if he opened it up, it would be disappointing, and that shaped his whole philosophy as to the mysteries. Like in Mission Impossible 3, the rabbit's foot. What is it? Who cares? It's a MacGuffin.
Yeah.
He likes storytelling where there's a mystery. But unfortunately, he always approaches from that as the beginning because he never has an answer to the mystery. He just knows there needs to be one. Whereas Annihilation, there's a mystery, and
does have
there may or
answers.
may not be an answer.
Or it may have multiple answers.
Exactly,
But that's
it may
the
have
thing. I
multiple
think the
answers.
difference
I feel it's a
between-
lot less lazy,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
a more purposefully
I think the difference between
done.
laziness and what Alex Garland does in this film is he still leaves the breadcrumbs out. And he knows where a lot of those breadcrumbs could lead somebody. Whereas on the flip side, if you're lazy, you're just like, throw the breadcrumbs wherever, I don't give a shit. And that is I think that's a massive difference between what Alex Garland does and what a lesser director would do with that. Because I feel like a lesser director would also be aiming to try and appease the audience somehow with that mystery. Be like, hey, a mystery is a good thing. A mystery is a fun thing. Whereas this, he's like, no, it's, you can come up with whatever you want, but I want you guys to have a personal connection with this. I don't want you guys to be taking this too lightly. Yeah. And that's what I really like.
I feel like
about
the actors had that as well with their characters,
Yeah.
where even though it was very subdued acting, I feel
at
like
times, and other times it was
I feel like
appropriately emotional.
Yeah.
I can't get that scream out of my head. The one that the bear makes to mimic the. I
Oh,
can't
that
get it
is
out.
haunting.
It's
I
frightening.
feel like high five for that.
I'm getting goosebumps just from thinking about it. Like,
Yeah, there's a lot of haunting imagery. There's that bear
Oh,
scene
the
especially
imagery
was
at the
really
end.
horrific.
yeah.
Imagery at the end.
The imagery at the end was mind-blowingly unique,
Yes.
and I really like it. I really dig it.
And it's
I
a long
love-
scene. It's
well,
weird.
wait,
It's one of those
it's
long
huge.
scenes that doesn't drag, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, because your brain the whole time
Yeah,
is
it's
like,
wow.
what is happening?
Are we talking about the
very
replicant?
end, so yes, yeah,
Okay.
sequence,
Yeah. Because it's
You were
almost
glued to the
like.
screen. The music is amazing.
Yeah,
Yes.
but
it's very
it's
long and drawn out, but you can't stop.
Exactly.
Everything is new to
One
you.
of the things I really loved about that scene was they utilized almost an interpretive dance choreography
Yeah,
to make
absolutely,
this scene
absolutely,
work.
yeah.
And I was like, this is
Yeah.
because film to me is just like this crazy mishmash of different artistic mediums to create something special, to create something unique. And that's what this film did in spades.
And
It
boys,
really
I think
felt
we
unique.
really need right now. Everyone, get your hands ready.
Mhm.
Just put your hands together for this movie.
Yeah.
That there was very little explanation.
Oh.
Very little light has been removed.
Yeah, that's
because in the movie there was no need for so much exposition. They didn't need to shine a light on everything. Not
true.
everything
No,
that happened. The
exactly.
characters needed to step aside and say, "Hey, that thing that happened was really weird. Here's my explanation as to why it could have happened scientifically."
Yeah.
None of that,
Like-
especially at the very end. It's
Yes,
like,
you're exactly
what
right.
happened? Don't know. Can you describe its form? No.
And I feel like
What is it?
that's
Don't
one of
know.
the interesting things about this movie is that it leaves these questions unanswered while
It's exciting.
dealing with a character that is out there looking for answers.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the
Yeah.
point in the movie is like you don't always get the answers, and you definitely don't always get the answers you want.
I saw, as I was reading about the book and the movie,
Mhm.
one thing becomes clear. There seems to be a general consensus between people trying to analyze it, that there's
Yeah.
a strong comparison between how hostile things behave in the movie and how just organisms behave.
Yes.
It's not, there's nothing emotional about it.
No.
It's just, it
Or
just
even
happens.
kill or
even
be
pedantry
killed.
necessarily.
Not even kill or be killed. It's just kind of things just happening. You're either in the path or you're not.
Yeah.
To
You
a
know,
point,
it's
and
just-
on that point, I would say, because I was reminded of like my bout again. It's gonna sound like a broken record, but my bouts with depression often feel like you are being hunted down inside your own head.
Yep.
And there is nothing you can really do to fight against it. You either step out of the way or try to step out of the way, or it's going to demolish you. It's going to eat you up.
I feel like that was the blonde lady who's
Yeah.
her.
She was dealing with a lot of grief.
Yeah.
Because her daughter had died. And just, yeah.
Yeah, heavy stuff.
Yeah. it is.
Lots of heavy stuff. People being thrown into a situation just wanting to know what the F is going on.
Yeah.
When I think I feel sort of satisfied with this, that it's not just a mindless mystery box, because
No.
I feel like the movie was saying, look, yes, there is a reason for all of these things happening, but the point of it is you're not going to know why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is
has
happening.
this idea of like critical thinking and stuff like this. Like you can do the best you can at something, and you're still not necessarily going to succeed.
Which is kind of
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
their mission in a nutshell,
Yeah.
really, because they
Yes.
were the best of the best. Like they were some of the best scientists that they could find. in terms of who they had left after everyone else had gone off into this thing and never come back, and even they couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
It's really deep. It's really deep.
It's deep.
But is it?
It is.
Was it just designed
Well, I think
that
that's
way?
one warning we should give to the audience.
For us to be able to project our own stuff onto the movie.
I think you need to be prepared when you go into this movie that you may be confronted with things in your own life.
Yeah.
Because it has this.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Personal
Like, I think there's a lot of evidence in this film through the choices that both the director and the actors make that tell me that they do know the ending. They do know the point.
Yeah.
They do understand it. But the reason why they don't tell us isn't to blue balls us, isn't to force us to recognize how amazing they are,
And
but it is
it's
to...
not even there to try and force us to figure it out.
Exactly.
Because
Because
that's
it's
not
not
the
the point.
Yeah.
Exactly. For me, especially, I feel like the point is those struggles. The point is, making the decision to be rolled over, to be destroyed by your own, vices or your own guilt or your own sadness, your own depression, or whether you're going to make the
Your own
choice to
fear.
continue to move.
Your own fear and despair. I think that's another thing this movie does is it talks about how acting out of fear can lead you to make a worse decision than
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
you have to think about things and you have to
And-
be clear in your own mind.
Yeah, and along with that last scene where
Absolutely, yeah.
she's being mimicked by
Things are exacerbated when
this-
she's at her most fearful.
Yeah, and also like she has to make the choice, like, do I allow this fear to change me? Do I allow myself to be destroyed by this new version of myself, or do I fight back and be the person that I need to be, that I want to be, that I actually am?
Mm-hmm.
And she makes that decision by the end of the film, and she is forever changed by that. And that for me is the point, is that journey that she goes on.
Wow, it's
It's hot in here.
Yeah.
We're all getting heated because
Yeah.
it's a movie like that, man. It's
It is.
really it's interesting. It's good. Okay, so I'm going to say two things. It hinges on one, the fact that you are immersed into the movie and the characters.
I
and
think-
what's
I
happening,
think
'cause if you're
people-
not-
it's not escapism.
if you're
though.
standing
not
on the
escapism,
sidelines
yeah.
though and thinking the whole time this is a movie, it's supposed to be entertaining, or it's supposed
You're
to
going to
be
be
a
disappointed.
movie.
You're going to be disappointed. I feel like if
Um,
your interpretation of what a movie should be is just escapism and entertainment, you're not going to like this movie.
This movie is designed to make you think, and if you do not want to think when watching a movie, then you probably won't get it.
I can see someone could easily come to the conclusion that there's nothing of substance to the movie.
Have you seen 2001: A Space Odyssey?
I bought that
I could
recently,
see
by
how
the way.
people- and I could see in a way that the producers, why they were so afraid of this movie, is because they're thinking that, most people just want to go in and see
They
an
want the
entertaining
popcorn.
movie. They
And to
want
be
a
honest,
popcorn movie.
they are not wrong.
They want to go in and see weird
Unfortunately.
sci-fi stuff.
Mhm.
They don't want to go in and see weird sci-fi stuff.
that's the
Well,
thing,
I mean,
like,
if we're being
sci-fi
honest-
They
is
want Star Trek
big thing.
2009, not Star Trek.
But
the
if
original
we're
series.
if we're being honest, like even Christopher Nolan had to wheel and deal and fight for Interstellar and Inception to be made.
Yep.
Like it's a struggle making these kind of films, and let alone films that are like Alex Garland's, which are, in my opinion, far more out there and far more
Yeah.
non-mainstream than Christopher Nolan's
Yeah.
films. Producers generally just don't want a lot to do with
I'm
them
so
because I
happy
don't
this
think
guy
they're
was
going to
given
be.
a budget.
Yeah,
I'm so happy.
yeah,
I hope he gets another
that's
budget.
the thing. That's my opinion as well. I want him to make another movie.
yeah.
I want him to see his perspective on film because, like, Ex Machina and Annihilation are actually very different in what they bring to a movie. But
Yeah.
at the same time, they both make you think.
And they also have they do have a personal style that Alex Garland does bring to film, and
Yeah.
I enjoy. I would love to see more of that perspective.
I'm going to argue, and it's hard to argue against it, especially for Annihilation,
Mhm.
but I'm going to argue I think I might see a trend in Alex Garland's work in the sense that the writing comes across as Alex Garland specifically writing it and the different characters are almost different versions of himself. And I really feel like in his
Because it's so
movies,
subdued, his characters are so subdued.
I really
think
feel
can
like
see
it's
that.
him. It's every character I see Alex Garland in. I see Alex Garland having a conversation with himself, with different versions of himself.
Okay.
I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, But I am saying
feel like
that I feel
Oscar
like it's,
Isaac in both movies has clear characters.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I'm not saying that they aren't characters, that it's more, they're just more talking pieces for the writer. I'm not saying that. I'm saying he's doing a good job in making up characters, in writing well-written, distinct characters. I mean, but he also knows when to shut up
Yes.
Yeah.
and to stop talking or stop writing.
And he knows-
because you think of that
yeah.
dancing scene in Ex Machina.
Yeah.
I mean, you think of the scene at the very end of Annihilation. You know, like he's great at telling a story, at presenting things
Showing, not telling.
It's
visually
very,
as
it's
well
very
as
visual.
as well as through the writing.
It's one of those weird things. But it's so visual. It's almost needing an explanation, but you don't want to give an explanation because you want your audience to figure it out.
But that's the thing. Like I do notice a lot of elements and things that he uses, visual cues, that a lot of the classics use to tell stories visually rather than through the dialogue. And it's something that is a little bit of a lost art in today's day and age of filmmaking, I feel. There is a lot more tell rather than show in filmmaking, unfortunately. But I'm just grateful that we have directors like Alex Garland, like Christopher Nolan, again, who is another one who does do a lot more showing rather than telling, that do tend to bring a lot of those old school classic ways of telling stories back. And
Can
I'm
we also
yeah,
talk
I'm-
about the color palette,
yeah,
because it's very distinct from the get-go. That outside the shimmer is dull grays. It's very
dull grays, muted blues, weird shades of almost the Matrix green. Like there's-
it's hyper real yet very boring.
yes, yeah,
Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah. And then when they get in the shimmer, it's
everything's a dream almost.
It's very colorful. There's a lot going on colors wise.
Yeah.
Which
But
is a
not
really-
on the characters. I think it should be
Yes,
noted.
It's on the
It's on the background, it's on their surroundings, but when it comes to them, they're still muted.
Mhm.
Like they're all dressed in this muted beige gray kind of stuff.
I think they might actually slowly change to get more colorful.
They
as they're
do.
going.
They do as they
Yeah.
go along. I know Gina Rodriguez, she starts to wear mostly black by the time she goes insane.
yeah.
And
Thinking
there's-
about it, the lighting and everything, it seems like there's almost no sun in
Yeah.
shimmer
Yeah.
at the very start. You know, and then
It's just light, like an indescribable
And
light
I could be
source
remembering
that
this
is-
completely wrong because I'm projecting my
It's
own
like a sun coming through the
visuals
cloud
onto
and you're
the
in the
blank
cloud.
slate.
Yeah, that's what it is. Like I
No,
think
you're
that's
right.
right. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's
I
yeah.
am right, aren't
Mhm.
I? I am right. Yeah, I'm right.
You're on the right of the screen.
I am right. Yeah. All right, now let's not be left behind. And
Was that a? Did you just? What did
yes,
you
I
just
did.
do?
I just pulled something out of my ass
Well done.
You just
because it's very late and I'm very tired.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair.
And
I
I'm
think-
also right.
Yeah.
I'm
so
right.
I think
Just leave it.
to sum it up, my opinion, to rate it is hard with Annihilation. It's a very personal movie. I think I was talking about in terms of Sunshine was a movie I was trying to compare it to, but even then it's hard. Like they are different movies.
Okay.
So like I think rating it, in my mind it's like I think it's an 8 out of 10. Like, but
For me, I
it's hard to
think
put a number on things.
it's again, it's hard to rate a personal film for me.
Mm.
I think it gets to a certain point where I'm like, okay, these films, like because of their quality and because of what the personal nature is to not just the director but also the intended audience,
Mhm.
I can't say it's like a definitive 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10 or a
No,
10 out
you've
of
got
10.
to say what it's personally to you or
Yeah.
how you would rate it in terms of other movies.
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of other films, I could probably rate it as high as 8, 9 out of 10. As far as its impact, it's hard to rate.
Where like this is a film that makes you think for a long time after
Yeah.
watching it, and it has individual scenes that stick with you for a long time.
I mean,
very
exactly.
visually.
Yeah,
The
four
visually
weeks
striking
out.
scenes
Yeah.
weren't there to be visually striking.
No, they were there for
They
the
were there
purpose of the
for a
characters.
reason.
Yeah.
I mean,
It wasn't just to be like, oh, look at us.
Although,
we can
yes,
make
it
a
was someone's
striking
job.
scene.
of course, it was someone's job to make
Yeah.
it look visually striking.
Yeah.
But it's
there was
stri-
more than
it's-
just.
It's striking because
Let's
it
make a
needs
weird
to
sci-fi
be.
movie.
Yeah, exactly.
It
It's
was
not.
more than that.
It's like the biggest difference is like there's a lot of amateur filmmakers, student filmmakers who tend to go, oh, let's make it visually striking because it looks awesome. And that's generally like an amateur's mistake because you want to make the best impression as a young filmmaker. You want everyone to be like going on about the thing. But these scenes that are striking for the reason of the characters and for the reason of the plot, not for any other reason.
This movie is horrifically beautiful.
Yeah.
Much like life.
And beautifully horrific, which means the same thing.
Frightening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I first saw this movie, I maybe would have given it a 7 out of 10. Maybe even a 6. Maybe even a 6.5 to 7. Solely because I didn't know. I didn't know how to think about the film. I didn't know how to process it.
It's hard to process.
I'm afraid now, because we're all people who agreed that it was a good movie. I'm afraid that after sitting here talking to you guys and getting enthusiastic about the movie, thinking back on it, I'm afraid we've created an echo chamber here.
Yeah, that's true.
Of just positivity for this movie.
You can just go.
However, I'm thinking about it now. I'm going to go with a 9.
Okay, wow.
I'm going to go with an 8.59.
Wow. Well done.
And that's personal. That's personal.
Is there other
I
movies
would never ever tell to someone it's a 9 out of 10 movie. I would never say that. I'd say for me, if I'm ranking my own movies and how I experienced and enjoy things and think back on them, it's a 9 out of 10. Like Interstellar for me now has gone down to maybe a 6 out of 10. That's a personal thing.
Yeah, no, that's understandable.
And but this one seems to be going up. It seems to be going up.
Okay. Is there other movies you'd relate it to in terms of its impact on you? Because I think
Impact.
Yeah.
Or
the way you think about things.
I got one.
You do?
Yeah, I got
Fear
one.
and Loathing in Las Vegas.
That's a pretty good one. That's a pretty good
because
one.
it's one that you think about.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
I don't think either of you two have seen it yet, but it's on our list of future podcasts to review. But The Favourite, for me, I recently saw it
That's
last
funny
week.
because actually I was thinking of The Lobster as well.
Yeah, but
Right.
the Favourite for me is one that there's a lot of stuff that stick with you, and it's one of those films that you're just like, wow, that was
Have either of you
horrible,
Yeah.
but also just true and impactful.
Have either of you seen Mother?
No, and I've been wanting to see
I
it for
feel
a
like
while.
I have.
Yeah. No, this.
I deliberately
it does
stayed away
do
from
some
a lot
the
of that
same
stuff.
things, but
Yeah.
it is different. It is different.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I think so. That's been our review of WeMovies. I'm sure you have different
Of
opinions
WeMovies.
That's been our review.
of WeMovies.
From WeMovies on Annihilation.
And I give us a 5 out of 10.
I think
Not
Really?
bad.
That's pretty high.
Not good.
I would
That's
whether
pretty
it is
high.
subscription.
That's
though.
run of the mill.
That's run
That
of the mill.
is the beige
Hey,
of ratings.
We've improved over the last couple of weeks, though. I
Exactly.
think I would
We've
have given
stepped
us
it
like a
up from an
0
eggshell.
out of 10. So that's,
Okay.
that's good.
All right. There's something there. I'm not sure what it is.
No.
Great. Thanks
Maybe.
for watching, guys. I'm Caleb.
I'm Scotty.
And I am me.
And
It's
we
Jordan.
are
WeMovies.
WeMovies better than you. Shout out to Chris. Love you. Bye.
I love you, Chris. And all our other viewers.
And all our other viewers, please like and subscribe and check out all our videos. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Wait, but before you go, let's draw out this outro even
Yeah.
longer. Thank you for watching us again.
This is turning into a shit show. All right,
Yeah.
let's wrap it up, guys.
Okay.
Do not forget to like us on Instagram, on Spotify, on Facebook, on YouTube. We will hopefully be up on Stitcher and iTunes pretty soon. We're still working on that. But keep an eye out for us because we've got more episodes coming. Next week, we are going to be doing Alita Battle Angel from Robert Rodriguez and James Cameron. And we are also doing Yorgos Lanthimos' next big film, which is at the Academy Awards for Best
Is it
Picture.
The Favourite?
It is The Favourite. It is also called The Favourite. So
it
stick
you?
around for that. We will see you guys very, very soon. Thank you so much for watching. We will end it now.
Shout out to Chris.
Shout out to Chris. Love you, buddy. Keep commenting. That one person that loves us.
One viewer. We make the show for you.
Exactly. Just for you, buddy.
That's it.
You're awesome. All right.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
just going to stop the video right now.
Actually,
No, 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 no.